Cable Bahamas Limited became a VAT registrant and is mandated to charge and collect VAT on behalf of the government of the Bahamas. Effective January 1st, 2015, VAT will be added at a rate of 7.5% on all your rev services. As a result, VAT will be included on all your statements beginning January 2015, and you will be required to pay your bill in full inclusive of the VAT. To learn more about the inclusion of VAT on your rev services, visit cablebahamas.com/VAT.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, when a woman's body is discovered Yamacraw Beach. The Bar Association president says remove politics from the judiciary. How a national development strategy is expected to secure the country's future. Plus, a local meteorologist releases another good read. I'm Paige McCartney, and we've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to MB12. A number of pledges were made by the Christie administration that never came to fruition in 2014 as promised. For one, the failure to create 10 new criminal courts by the end of 2014, underscoring the limited number of cases that are heard in criminal courts on an annual basis. Prime Minister Perry Christie said in 2013 that the government wanted 10 new courts by the end of last year. The new year was ushered in without the creation of those courts. Well, President of the Bahamas Bar Association, Elsworth Johnson, said the completion of such a task should not be political.
We should stop seeing the administration of justice as a political agenda. It's not. It's there to protect the fundamental rights of the individual. It's supposed to be, it is an independent arm of the government. And those who are experts or who are working in that field should be allowed, their suggestions should be taken into consideration. In terms of civil matters, ADR, all those different things you can do.
Last year, Minister of State for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez revealed that only 89 criminal cases were tried in a 12-month period. At the time, there were only 5 criminal courts. In November, he told reporters that government had done everything humanly possible to speed up trials with the refurbishment of an additional 5 Supreme Courts in the Ansbacher building on Bank Lane. He asserted that government lived up to its promise. But Johnson is of the belief that there are resources within the judiciary to properly manage the system, but government has to decide what is important for the country.
You have persons who could properly manage the judicial system. For instance, we have a library, and the political directorate understand that there needs to be funding to have a proper library, so that when even the AG officers go to the Supreme Court, they can access it for the purpose of research. We know that the facilities are not the best. You have to have the political intestinal fortitude to provide the funding. We're going to provide $9 million for Carnival when you look at the structure, right, of the court system and what is necessary there. You can't provide it. You still have buildings that we're still trying to repair. You still have the magistrates' court that still experience serious structural problems.
Asked whether government bit off more than it could chew by promising the new courts, Johnson said this.
That question is an interesting one, because I remember Mr. Justice Burton Hall and the picture that he always had in his office of the edifice that had been promised to be constructed to place the courts in, and the sentiments were expressed that perhaps he may be dead before those things come. People are not interested in promises anymore. The judiciary are not. We just have to do things. Our social ills that we face in this country, the assets that the judiciary needs in order to perform their task, you have to provide them, and that's just it. And so you have courts that some of them that have been refurbished, and you don't have people sitting on the bench. You don't have the staff. You have the tiles that are popping up off the floor. We just need to do things properly.
The Bar Association president said government must stop blaming the judiciary. He said the executive branch is in charge of the national purse and how resources are used.
When you have so much funds to place in other areas of the economy or the state, one wonders whether or not they're just promises and you're not serious about what you're promising.
Police are investigating the death of a woman whose partially clothed body was found on a beach in Yamacraw Friday afternoon. According to reports, the victim was naked from the waist down. Head of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Paul Roll, said her body was discovered at around 3 p.m. near the shoreline.
Officers responded to the scene where they met a female partially clothed, lying in the mud where the tide has receded. We are not certain of the circumstances surrounding this discovery.
Roll said police are not certain at this time how the woman met her death, but there were no visible signs of injury on her body.
The female, I would appeal to persons who may have had a relative missing. This female, it's a solid built young woman, seems to be at least in her mid-30s, low haircut to medium haircut, and she was wearing a kind of fuchsia pink to lavender purplish blouse. Appears to nearby is a blue sweatsuit pants.
And although government vowed to make the economic development of Abaco a priority in the lead up to the 2012 North Abaco by-election, recently released job figures from the Department of Statistics show something different. The labor force survey conducted in November 2014 shows that joblessness on that island represents 20.3% of Abaco's labor force. That works about to nearly 10,000 people. That's about nearly 10,000 people. This is despite recent developments on the island, including the Sandpiper Inn on Schooner Bay and the sale of the Abaco Club on Winding Bay late last year. Director of the Department of Statistics, Kelsey Dorsett, said her team was surprised by the numbers and took great care in determining the demographics of those unemployed. She said studies found it was largely attributed to the people living in certain areas on that island.
We ourselves, do a lot of counter checking and rechecking, because when we got the results too, we were saying, oh, it's really high. And we tried to pinpoint this large pockets in Abaco where the unemployment rate is quite high. And they would be the areas like the pea and the mud and sandbanks, etc. The unemployment rate is quite high, and that tended to move the overall rate on that island up.
As the third most populated island in the Bahamas, this is the first time Abaco was included in the labor force survey released on Friday. Numbers showed that more women than men were unemployed at 22.8% and 18.2% respectively. Dorsett said seasonal workers also affected the numbers.
In Abaco, we have a lot of fishermen, crawfishermen, that sort of thing, whose work is seasonal. And it depends on how they answer our questions when we do the survey. We'll determine whether they are out of the labor force during that period or whether they are actually unemployed, because this is not happening, but they're looking for something else while the season is closed.
Last month, Minister of State for Investments Kalis Roll insisted that several family islands were poised for tremendous economic growth. He said the expansion of the Marsh Harbor Airport would provide renewed energy for Abaco's economy and provide a template for similar developments and public-private partnerships on other family islands. And more than $500,000 will be spent on the formation of a national development plan that Minister of State for Investments Kalis Roll insists will map out strategies for the country. Roll says the failure of successive governments to come up with a national plan has hampered the future success of the Bahamas and its now stagnant economy. Jasmine Brown has more in this report.
We cannot afford to fail. We have to have a plan that guides our development. We've for too long allowed development to be activities driven.
Roll insists he feels that strongly about the National Development Plan, saying that an initial report has revealed a number of key issues that need to be addressed. The state minister for investments says the National Development Plan Vision 2040 is vital to achieving a modern roadmap for the Bahamian economy.
You know, you don't develop a country through activities. You have to have a very strategic, a very focused, and a comprehensive mechanism for doing so.
Roll says the idea for the plan came shortly after the Christie administration won the 2012 general election. Consultation on the government's long-awaited National Development Plan began last October. The government reached out to the IDB and signed a technical agreement worth $450,000, according to Roll. He says the government has also allocated $100,000 for the project, bringing the total cost so far to $550,000.
We engaged many stakeholders from the private sector as well as civil society, and a technical cooperation was signed with the IDB. And what you see here today is the workings, the inner workings of that technical cooperation. We signed an agreement with a company called iOS Partners after going to tender.
In November, Prime Minister Perry Christie said he expected the plan to be completed by June 2015. Roll says the first phase of the plan is now wrapping up, with officials putting the finishing touches on the State of the Nation report that he says pinpoints key issues and concerns that need to be addressed.
We are hoping in the next month or so to receive a State of the Nation report. And that State of the Nation report will tell us exactly where we are. It'll give us a true reflection of the misgivings and the lack of forward progress we've made as a result of not planning our development properly. A part of that process will feature analyzing all of the reports that have been done over the years relating to different sectors of the country: the economy, social services, education, citizen security. You know, we will have something that gives us a clear understanding as to where we are and what we need to do.
Roll says once the report is submitted, the tedious task of mapping out the way forward will begin. Reporting for NV12, I'm Jasmine Brown.